I was hearing about them years ago, but they couldn't have started, what, more than 10, 15 years ago?
Well, it's interesting. I think they became especially popular in the Orthodox community in
Hmm.
particular. I'd say that that's right, maybe 10, 15 years ago, within
Hmm.
less than 15 years. But they did exist previously on a much smaller basis,
Oh,
both
really?
within the, yeah,
Hmm.
within the Orthodox community. Before that, probably in the Reform community, interestingly enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, if you go back to probably as early as the late 80s or early 90s, you have reform Man Seders, called by different names,
Huh.
this sort of thing. Probably a response to women's Seders that happened and were emerging as
Huh.
well. And so, while I'm not a historian of this, it's kind of been suggested that first in the certainly outside of the Orthodox community, and then ultimately in the Orthodox community later on, there were women's satyrs, and we know that there are kind of feminist
Huh.
symbols that some people have at satyrs, things like that. But then, especially in the non-Orthodox community, there was this earlier awareness of this crisis,
Hmm.
right? Like the early discussions of like, wait a second. So now, if we've allowed women to become ordained and so on and so forth, so many wonderful opportunities for women to become involved and engaged in the community in a variety of ways, and then men were emptying from the pews.
Hmm.
And so there's this crisis. And so there was this literally crisis of masculinity or of just men
Yeah.
involved in
Or just
engagement.
the role for men to be involved in Jewish life, or at least in this specific piece of Jewish life.
Yeah, there was this sense of there was pride in the new opportunities that were being made available to women at
Hmm.
all levels of synagogue life. But then there was this kind of later awareness. Wait a second, where are all the men disappearing? The Men Seders are not meant to be anti-feminist. That's not
Hmm.
how, in any denomination that anyone that we've really spoken to, but rather kind of meeting either an educational needs we spoke about, kind of like achieving competency and understanding the Seder,
Hmm.
or a social need.
Yeah.
That's a really important piece of it.